Evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 24th Goffstown Select Board meeting. Our first order of business, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please join us? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is the acceptance and correction of minutes from 10/7/22 public minutes and 10/17/22 public minutes.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 10/7/22 public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, seeing none, motion passes. The next would be the 10/17/22 public minutes.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 10/17/22 public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. We have an announcement tonight. First of all, before we get to the announcement, we have a young man that's here tonight from the high school, and you're here to observe the meeting for your civics class.
Yeah, civic engagement.
What was your name?
Hunter Nelson.
Hunter Nelson? Welcome.
Thank you.
We have an announcement tonight, is the supervisors of the checklist will be in session in Town Hall, 16 Main Street, Goffstown, New Hampshire, on Saturday, October 29th, 2022, downstairs in room 109, from 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. for the purpose of making corrections to the checklist and for new voter registration. Change of address and party affiliation changes can be made also at this time. If you are registered to vote, please bring your, if you are registering to vote, please bring your photo ID, proof of date of birth, resident address. Anyone not born in the United States must also bring proof of citizenship. Any person with a disability who needs to be provided a reasonable accommodation to participate, please call at 497-8990, extension 100, at least 72 hours in advance. Is there, we've got a few more minutes. Derek, why don't you get started?
Okay, at tab 7, you find your committee meeting schedule. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the high school, you have a joint meeting with the budget committee, second half of the town presentations. Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. the HGC will meet at Grassmere Town Hall.
Yep.
And Conservation will meet at 7 p.m. here in Town Hall.
Yes.
Thursday at 7 p.m. the planning board will be in this room.
Yes.
Next week, just a reminder that Halloween is from 6 to 8, so I think Kelly and Jim, you're going to be here? Great. And then next Wednesday at 6 p.m. EDC meets at Town Hall.
It's me.
On your next page, you have your consent agenda. You have employee status reports for the Information Systems Director, end of promotional probationary period, a step increase. You have code enforcement, building inspector / zoning administrator new hire, police department call taker resignation, dispatcher, successful completion of probationary period and a merit increase, firefighter to firefighter AEMT merit increase, a DPW truck driver discharge, Parks and Recs ground program assistant, a successful completion of probationary period, merit increase. You have a letter from the fire chief regarding overtime and fleet maintenance budget lines. There's no action required on that. And then you have rights to inter Hillside Cemetery, range 31, lot 2A, West Lawn Expansion Cemetery, section 4, lot 182, West Lawn Cemetery, section 1994, lot 192, and West Lawn Expansion Cemetery, section S3, lot 205.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Collis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Your next page, you have assessor's recommendations. The town assessor recommends the following: a land use change tax for map 12, lot 10-4.
Make a motion to approve the assessor's recommendations as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Next page, you have the NHMA Legal Services Point of Contact. This follows the response that you provided NHMA last year that any requests for legal services would go through either the town administrator or assistant town administrator.
I'll make a motion to approve the drafted response designating the town administrator and the assistant town administrator as the authorized points of contact for legal options from NHMA Legal and authorize the select board chair to sign.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Any discussion on this? Jim, you're shaking your head yes. Is that,
No, I'm just reading, so we have overview of what they do, so it's part of the motion here. And authorize the board to sign, what does that mean?
Yes, you'd be authorizing the select board chair to sign the letter.
And that's just for legal opinions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
that's that?
Yep, thank you.
Motion's on the floor to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
At tab 7E, you have a recommendation from the finance director for award of bid for auditing services for the year 2022 through 2024. Two bids were received, and the recommendation is to go to Plodsick and Sanderson's of Concord, New Hampshire. And Danielle is here if you had any questions about that.
That's who we're using now?
No, we're currently with Melanson. We've been with Melanson for many, many years. They did not respond to the bid.
Motion to award the bid to Plodsky and Sanderson, PA of Concord, New Hampshire, and to authorize the town administrator to enter into a contract for auditing services for 2022 and 2024.
Through 2024.
Yeah, through 2024.
I'll second.
Motion by Mark.
I'm sorry, so that was the only bid we got?
No,
No,
we have two.
there were two.
Where's the other one?
Do I have a second?
The second page, the other one was from Vashon, Cluckey
Oh, I
and
see it.
Company.
Yeah.
They were both very similar price,
I see it, thank you.
so.
We have a motion on the floor, right?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Added this evening, we have appointment of volunteers for Economic Development Council. They met on October 5th and recommended to appoint Dick Bruno as a full member with a term expiring March 2023, and they recommended appointing Christopher Barrett as an alternate member, serving in a term that expires March 2023.
Take these separately.
I'll make a motion to appoint Dick Bruno as a full member of the EDC for a term expiring March 2023.
I'll second that.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Collis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
And I'll make a motion to appoint Christopher Barrett as an alternate member to the EDC for a term expiring March 2023.
I'll second that as well.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Collis. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Handed out this evening were the 2023 weekly rates for the town's health insurance and the share between employees and the town. As you can see there, there are a few notes at the bottom. This was the rates for dental went up, I believe it was 1.5%, and health went up 0.6% on the rates. So we're just looking for the board to confirm these. These were calculated by finance and double checked by Danielle. And they'll allow us to schedule open enrollment with all employees.
And that period is when?
Open enrollment, we usually do that in November, end of November, early December.
Derek, did the town share go up at all?
So the rates overall went up 0.6%, but we did not, the board has not indicated a change to the town employee share. So that hasn't changed. So the rate has gone up slightly, but pretty negligible.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else? Motion? Need a motion, right?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 weekly rates for all benefits for all employees.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. It
And
is-
the last item we added is gonna take a little bit, so.
All right, we'll do that later.
Okay, great.
It is 6:10. At 6:10 in every meeting, we have a public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment? Not yet. You're next. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Police chief, you want to come up and we'll go over your highway safety recommendations? And this is on section 4.
Yeah, tab 4.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Mr. Chair, would you like to proceed like we normally do? We'll go through each one and
Please.
take a vote through each one?
Yeah.
Okay. So, these all came from our September 21st Highway Safety quarterly meeting. First up is Bell Road. The resident of Bell Road has been living there for quite some time and has been experiencing a low-hanging wire that crosses Bell Road. There's been some increased construction vehicles that are going down to Bell Road due to construction on Bog Road. Some of these vehicles are pretty big and a couple of times now have ripped the wires off of the side of the resident's house. They came to us looking for us to make it a no through truck on Bell Road. When our officers went out there and looked at it, did their investigation, it appeared that the trucks are not over height, but it appears that when they did some surface work there, the road went up a little bit. When they looked at the wire, talked to the utilities to try to see if the wire could go up higher in the pole, it appears to be pretty high up on that pole already. So it's just the length from the pole to the house is just so far that the wire just sags, causing these trucks to hit. Based on this, the Highway Safety Committee did not recommend prohibiting trucks from going through per se, but did recommend having Adam Jacobs reach out to Eversource to determine if they can reset a pole on the other side that can kind of bring that wire a little bit more taut and then over to the house based on this. He has since talked to them. They've recognized that it's a consolidated pole, so they're working with them to get that resolved. So at this point, we're going to try to see if the utilities can put a new pole in or at least restring that for them. I believe the pole, it's not a power line, it's more of a utility line for them. And we're recommending this based on just on right now because of the increased traffic due to the construction on Bog Road. We asked the construction company to go around the other way, but as they're coming from New Boston and they're trying to make that turn on the bog, it's kind of a really tight turn because it goes back the other way. So they're not able to make that turn very easy, so they're using Bog Road as the cut through.
Now, as we travel around, at least as I travel around, I'll see signs on the side of the road, low wires ahead. Can we get somebody to put that out there just as a reminder in the meantime?
We could probably put a temporary sign up there without being on scene and seeing it myself. I would suspect that as soon as they turn that corner, I'm pretty sure that wire is probably right there.
Oh, is it?
So even if they turn that corner onto Bell, the house sits right pretty close to that corner. So the sign would be there, but they would pretty much be right on top of that wire. But it's something that we can look into of putting a temporary sign up there.
And has the DPW director given you any idea how long it takes to get a response from Eversource?
He told me that he got a pretty quick response, that it was consolidated. He contacted them, and they're still working on figuring out the logistics behind it.
So that's a telephone company or a pole on that side of town?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's that one.
We want to take these one at a time, or just leave it alone?
So there's no action for the town
No
at this
action to be
point.
taken by us, okay.
We're just working with the utility to advise them
Right.
of what's going on.
Next one?
Next one is Catamount Road. We had a person come in to ask for a reduced 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. We're just giving you guys a heads up. I know that the chair had asked us to bring these the middle of the year. This one is more of a update that we went through this traffic study We looked at it, we determined that the speeds weren't necessarily too concerning at this point, but it's fairly new with the new road design, because the road got overlaid pretty nice before that. If you haven't had the privilege of driving on Catamount, it was like a war zone up there. So currently it's a 35. The signs were taken out during construction, and now they're put back up. So the Highway Safety Committee recommended taking the signs out at this point and having our traffic teams look to find some more data over the next half of the year, and then coming to you guys next year with a recommendation of 25 mile an hour.
So what you're recommending is taking the signs down,
Yes, sir.
not having any limits, any speed limit sign there.
Well, it would be like every other neighborhood in this community right now, it's technically a 35, but
Right.
it's not on there. And then seeing what the raw data is, measuring it.
Okay.
We did notice that although the speeds weren't increased significantly at this point, there is a large number of increase in traffic that uses that road as a cut through. Because if you're not familiar with Catamount, it feeds from the back road all the way up into Monarch Ave and that whole back area over there. So we're looking to pull those signs to measure some more data through our different radar units, and then determine what the actual, if it's the speed or if it's just a traffic increase. But the residents in that neighborhood are concerned with the increased traffic and the speed.
Go ahead.
So that one right now is, there's no action for the board to take at this point. It's more of an advisory.
You don't need a recommendation from the board to take down the signs? That's a query.
Can I ask you a question?
Go right ahead.
Are we developing a master list of all these requests and we're gonna review?
That's
them?
what we just talked about, yeah.
Okay. Because we're seeing more and more of these.
Yeah,
And it never fails. People want their road improved, we improve the road, and guess what?
yeah.
Speeds go up.
That's the people on Shirley Hill.
Yep.
So the speed limits haven't changed. They won't change until you guys approve a speed limit. So we're just gonna pull them temporarily to see what the actual data is.
Okay.
So we're asking you for we're recommending you guys give us permission to pull the signs for now to measure the data without them there.
So you want a motion on that?
Please.
I'll make a motion that we remove the signs until further surveys have been completed on Catamount.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Next one was requested blind driveway sign on Hooksett Road. They went out and did a traffic study on that. We recommended no action after discussion. Based on this recommendation was we had no major accidents on Hooksett Road between Hooksett and East Dunbarton, and there was no significant traffic. Speeds were not an issue, or there wasn't a large amount of traffic going through that neighborhood. It only affected that one driveway, and our traffic officers had spoken with the resident, tried to offer her a couple different recommendations other than that sign. So at this point, we're recommending no.
As you're going down the hill and coming up, it's on the right?
As you're coming from Hooksett,
Oh, from Hooksett.
into Goffstown, as you come in, you kind of start to go right on the curve and then down. This resident is right here in the corner, and their big thing was just, it's pretty close to where their mailbox is, but we had no other justification to put this sign there. There was no accidents in that neighborhood, there was no speed, really, we had the radars out there, and there wasn't anything significant to put this out there, so.
Peter, questions of the chief?
Go ahead, Mark.
Chief, I know during the meeting we had spoke about somebody possibly going to speak to the owner of the residence to possibly try to come up with a different pattern when she comes in her driveway. Has anybody gone to speak to her
I'm
about that?
pretty sure they did.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, fine, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Peter, it sounds
Go
to
ahead.
me like the action we're gonna take is to deny the request for a blind driveway sign. 'Cause the
Well, no,
request-
because what we're operating off of is the committee's recommendation. The committee's recommendation is to do nothing. Otherwise, if they wanted to change something, we would be,
I mean, somebody's requested something, why don't you say, yep, request is approved or it's denied, one or the other.
well, I think the safety committee denied it.
We told the resident that we were
It says
not,
they recommend no action.
we
That's
were
different.
recommending no action or no blind driveway sign to the Board of Selectmen. So they're aware that we're recommending no action be taken.
Okay. I guess that's the same end result.
Next.
Next is Moose Club Road, Moose Club Park Road. There's a pretty significant curve that goes down the hill. This resident has just moved here and feels that there should be a dangerous curve and slow down sign on that road as you approach it from Mass Road, taking a right going down the hill. Based on our investigation and canvassing of the neighborhood, and we haven't had any significant traffic crashes on that curve, day or night. And there is a street light that actually sits right on that curve that illuminates that curve. We talked to the resident and advised him that we're taking no action, that we feel that residents in that neighborhood that have been there for 30 years have never had any issues. We recommend no action on that dangerous curve and slow down sign on Moose Club Park Road.
You know what they're talking about.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Same comment, Peter.
Okay. Someone who's driven that road many, many, many times when I lived down there, I know what they're talking
I know
about.
exactly what you're talking about as well.
They took a ride after the meeting to go look at it, and, I mean,
It's there, it's always been there.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't ever remember seeing any accidents there.
All set, Mr. Chair?
Go on to the next one.
Next one is, we had a request to not put a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Stephen Drive. We discussed this at Highway Safety, and we determined that this was brought to the board at a previous meeting. The board went through its motion to approve a reduced speed to 25 miles an hour zone on Stephen Drive, and it passed through all the hearings, and it became a town ordinance. I didn't feel as a chairman that it was our duty to not put the sign up, as it was already a town ordinance, and we had reached out to the resident who did not want this on their road and advised them that because it's already a town ordinance, that they would have to come to the board and ask the board to repeal the town ordinance. So at this point, we took no action as a highway safety of putting a no 25-mile-an-hour speed limit zone.
Because there's an ordinance that says it's 25, does it have to be posted? Isn't there the town ordinance one, streets that are 25 like we just discussed in a previous one where we took down to 35?
I would have to get back to you on that. I'd have to look at the rules of the road. But yeah, there are most of our 25-mile-an-hour speed limit zones in this community that are ordinance driven are posted.
Okay, so if it's not posted, it'd be pretty hard to enforce a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Yes.
And that's your conundrum. How do you,
Because it's hard for an officer to sit on a road, whether it's 25, 50, 35, and there's no signs anywhere, to tell an operator when they turn onto that road that it's this speed limit, for us to then stop them and then write them a ticket when there's no speed limit anywhere. Now, there is some RSA that talks about, if it's not posted, it's 35 mile an hour, and that's kind of, everybody should know that through driver's ed, but that's not always the case. We like to have it posted so people understand that.
so the people that live there on Stevens Drive would have to understand, if we take the sign down, we'll have to repeal the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, because we're making something that'd be pretty damn hard to enforce if there's no sign there telling people. So I guess when we speak to Evelyn in a few minutes, that's a decision that the people on that drive have to decide whether they want a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit or have a sign that leaves it at 25.
Yeah, I think the concern as the police chief is that, for me, is that we need, if it's a 25, we need to alert motorists that that speed limit on that road is a 25-mile-an-hour zone. Now, where it sits on the road, between the rules of the road and how it's supposed to be done through the how it's by national code, I'm not sure if we can work on that. I'd have to talk to Adam and see if there's some kind of way we can kind of maybe put it closer towards the front of the road, not in the middle of the road or down at the end. We've had a conversation about potentially putting it more into Stephen Drive, but again, I think what happens is that immediate stretch of Stephen Drive, that initial, I guess if you want to call it a quarter mile, that as cars are turning down there, people are walking and enjoying that road, that cars are going to be driving by them. And again, the initial part of this was not necessarily the residents, it was more the UPS drivers, the Amazon drivers, the FedEx drivers are turning on and just going as fast as they can down the road. And some of the residents feel that it was a little bit too fast. We talked about having it down there, but then now you're missing that opportunity to show people that are turning on a Stephen Drive, this is 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Okay. So I think we'll set this off to the side and we'll listen to Evelyn. And maybe they, as a community or as the residents, are gonna have to, if we go back to being 35, are we gonna have a group come to your committee again and saying they want the speed limit reduced to 25 without signs, which we're not gonna do?
I'm not sure, I mean, you know, I think that when you're changing the speed limit sign, or the speed limit on a road, you should post it.
I agree.
Like,
Anybody
where it
got any
sits,
questions?
where it sits on the road, I think that might be part of the
All right, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Evelyn?
Evelyn Miller, 35 Stephen Drive. Hello.
Oh,
Good evening.
Let's see, the first I was aware that we were going to have a change in the sign was that orange flags were put up on the side of the road, and I had 3 different neighbors ask me, are you putting a driveway in here? I said, no, I don't know what's going on. And so then I did call the highway department and then was told about the increase, the request for the increase in the speed limit. And I guess I was surprised because we sit at the far end of that long runway, and then it goes around us. And it's always been unbelievably peaceful. And I said to Derek when I actually came in, I said, I do not say this in jest. I hear more airplanes go over my head than I see cars coming down the road. It's very, there are actually just this last week, and this is a typical week, and I was out gardening and that, I saw 5 teenage girls on their skateboards, you know, using that area. We had a gray car, it was a Jeep, a new Jeep, and it kept going around and stopping and this, and then, and actually my neighbor said, we said something, I said, did you see the gray car? She said, oh yes, they were learning how to drive, which is, it's a very common area that people use to learn to drive. In fact, one time I was out gardening and the garbage truck went around once and it was the wrong day for garbage pickup. I know, that's weird. On the 4th time, I'm thinking, what is going on? And then they stopped and changed drivers, and then they went off. I've also had the school buses come and learn how to drive there, too. I did say to, actually, a couple of, well, these neighbors that asked me, Gene lives across, Gene Hazelton across the street from me, and he says, I don't know why they're changing this. He says he walks his dog every day and goes up around Shirley Hill and that. He said Shirley Hill is really fast, or Back Mountain, but our area he just hasn't seen, we haven't seen that speed at all. And then finally the UPS, and the UPS guy, they, again, when they come down our straightaway, people, they're looking at the geese on the pond, they're looking at the turkeys that are moving out, with the sheep in the area. So that's what I see. I don't really know what's going on behind, but there's an awful lot of, it's a quiet neighborhood. And I think the final thing is, well, let's see, several years ago, it's a farm area. Several years ago, There was a request in the neighborhood that wanted to put lights up, like a street light. And the community said no. They wanted to be country. I know with conservation, we've really worked hard at making the farms up there remain. When the federal grant came through that you could have something be put in farmland at conservation, that we acquired that with the farms that are up there so that it really does remain a farming area, not that it turn into big developments, which I think is something that the people that live behind me really appreciate too. It's just a lovely farm area. So I think that's part of why I was not excited about having the sign put up. And so then I think stupidly, and here it goes, we weren't thrilled about the placement of the sign. That farm, when we bought the place, was on the skids down. We have spent a lot of time cleaning up along the roads, the stone walls, planting trees along the double way, around the pond, all of that, and keeping it nice. I was saying, the barn has been used on a calendar. The state police came one time and had a bunch of state police out there and used it as backdrop for a TV thing that come to New Hampshire, drink and don't drive, blah, blah, blah.
I think we need to get to the point of the speed limit sign.
I-
Now, your neighbors, obviously your neighbors, or somebody up on that road came before us
What?
and asked us to reduce the speed limit. How long ago was that, Derek? Do you have that info?
That was done in the spring of this year.
In the spring, so
So-
your neighbors
Well, I
up there
have
asked for
four
it.
that said to me they don't want it. So there's 17 houses. The ones up front, Yost said they don't want it, the Jean.
That's fine, but we had a group that came in. and-
I didn't know,
And there was a public hearing held.
We
and
weren't
there were actually
noticed.
2 public hearings, wasn't there, Derek?
Yes.
And
sir.
then then there's a third meeting that we adopt the policy. Now,
we
we
never
would
got
have-
a notice about it.
we would
Where
have.
do you
well,
notice?
We posted all those things are posted in the newspaper when we're having a
I
public
don't get a
hearing on the
newspaper.
website, or
The
on our
newspaper-
website.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So typically, when we get a recommendation from the Highway Safety Committee, it comes with a significant amount of data that they find.
Right.
So in
So-
this instance, we would have had data to support making this.
Did they do data in terms of,
Yes,
like,
ma'am.
is that something public that we can see?
Yes, I don't have the report with me, but I'm not sure if the chief could speak to it, or maybe.
I don't know, can you look at, can somebody
Selectman
look it up in the
Lemay, if
minutes?
he has it.
We can get you a copy of the data. What they do is they go out there, they'll post a trailer out there, or they'll post an officer out there, and they'll check the, watch for radar speeds and see what the speeds are. Then they come back to the safety committee, and they say, safety committee, this is what we found. And the safety committee then makes a recommendation. So obviously, they made a recommendation to reduce that speed to 25 miles an hour, and that recommendation came to us. And we look at the data and what they recommend, and then we make our decision there. So in order for us, I don't really think we could take the sign down and,
It's not up now.
well, it should be up if there's a 25 mile an hour speed
There's
limit.
no sign up now.
So, well, we'll
There are
have to
little
put.
orange flags that where they want to put it.
Okay, well, they're gonna have to put one up if we're gonna keep it at 25. Either that, or we'll have to go through a process of reversing that decision. And I guess I would ask the police chief to go through or Derek, and come back with where the data and the recommendation. But as of now, if that street, we've passed an ordinance that says it's 25 miles an hour, it should have a sign on it saying 25 miles an hour. We can't enforce it if it's not there.
You know what, what's so interesting? So I went around in the town and went through all the subdivisions. It is amazing how many subdivisions do not have any 25-mile-an-hour zones. There are very few. And the only one down on Shirley Hill is the one at the bottom it's a brand-new subdivision with the great big houses, and there are only 9 houses, and it's a dead end. It's a short dead end, and that has a 25-mile-an-hour zone. And all the rest that you have, you've got, it's just incredible, the numbers that you have. Magnolia Drive that has 40 houses on it, and it has the same kind of thing, up and down and around. That has no speed
But
limit
this,
on.
I don't think you understand, this isn't, I'm not disagreeing that those streets are 35. Just like your street was 35, and they asked to have the speed reduced to 25. If those other folks came in and said, you heard some tonight, they want to have certain things done, then we go through the procedure. I don't think it's fair to those people who came in and asked for the 25, and we did the research and followed the procedure, posted public hearings for it, two public hearings and then another one to vote.
I think you should notice the people that are, because I'm sorry, I have 4 neighbors, and I didn't go around and canvass anybody. They were asking me about the orange flags of the road, and I said, I don't know, and then I told them what it was. They said, they don't think that it's needed, but so maybe you should be, when you notice people, maybe sending out a letter that says there's gonna be a notice. When you're talking about I don't spend every day looking on the website to see what's happening in Goffstown, and that's basically what you're telling me I would need to do. If I should know that this was, you were having your
Yeah, we
hearings.
don't notice, Derek, you can go into the noticing part of it, but we don't notice everything on everybody.
You used to notice abutters about things that were going on in town, by letter. If you had any
So
kind
we notice abutters for land use applications as is required in the statute. The adoption of ordinances is a notice in the newspaper and,
there is no newspaper now, Derek. So you're
So
saying
if-
on the website.
okay, so if the board were to direct us to put additional, that would be a board decision to notify either people by door hangers or letters.
There's an added
We could do that.
expense to that.
Yes, and we could do that in the future if the board directed us to do that.
Derek, where do we notice the union leader, correct?
Yes.
But at this time, I don't think we're going to be able to do it unless we would have to go through and make a change and then notify.
Well, then my other question was, could we put the signs, and that's what, I think, the request that I had because I was told by Derek that I had to have 2 requests. One, to go to the police and say, we really are not, we don't think the neighborhood traffic is justified to be 25. We didn't see it as a problem, and then the other request was to come to the selectmen that said, could you put the signs elsewhere than where, and I think I put a little,
Yep, this is
How about
diagram.
if we directed the DPW director and the police chief to go out, take a look, and find a more appropriate place to put the sign? Would that be okay?
well,
Well,
Talk with that-
They'll have to, because they're in charge of the safety, they'll have to make a decision on where the sign goes. They can't hide it behind a tree or something where it can't be seen. It has to be out in the open. But I'm sure between the 2 of them, they can find a decent
well,
spot.
I had suggested, because I don't want to look at it, to be perfectly honest. I know this sounds ridiculous. We're paying a view tax to look at that. We own the property in front of us, and we own the property where we are, and we're paying it. I was saying, and the people that live in the front part, we don't have a problem with traffic. So if the people behind us want it, I had suggested that they put a sign at either side where they're going around, and then that was, okay, so anyway,
Well, go ahead and have them take a look.
and see if that's
see
a
if they
possibility.
can find a better spot.
Okay.
Adam, come on up.
Well, you didn't need to go down that one. I think one of the things that the Highway Safety Committee discussed was whether or not the ordinance as written was going to present a problem. I don't have it right in front of me, but I think Derek had a copy of it in your packet. I think if you look, it says either the entirety of Stephen Drive or all of Stephen Drive. So one thing we discussed was whether or not moving it further down to the split. I'd prefer one right at the very end, and then it's only 1 sign instead of 2, and then no matter which way you go, you've seen it. But that was kind of one question. If this conversation got to that point, would we have to amend the ordinance, or could the fact that the sign is just not at the beginning means it's not enforceable for that first stretch? The ordinance can stand, but the sign's further down, so I think if that's the way you're leaning, I
Well-
think we'd like that answer before we go out and scout out a new spot.
This is my 2 cents, okay? A group of people got together with the Highway Safety Committee, they had the ordinance changed to 25, okay? You can't ignore those people, okay? And you can't ignore them by saying, we're only going to enforce half of it, because we're not gonna put a sign at the beginning or at the end or someplace. So that's my 2 cents. I mean, those people came in, did their now, if we wanna go through the whole thing again and notify those people that, well, we're changing the ordinance again, it's gonna be 35, well, then we can do that. But if you have they came in and asked for a 25 mile an hour, they didn't say we only want half the road, we only want the back half or the front half. So I don't feel that it's right for them to be thinking now that they have a 25 mile an hour speed zone and part of it's gonna be 35. So that's my 2 cents, Kelly.
Mr. Chair, one of the main concerns that I'm hearing is that there's a group of residents who don't believe that the speed limit should have been dropped. But as we already talked about, there would have been data to back that up, right,
Exactly.
for that decision that was made. So I guess my first request is I would like to have us share with Ms. Miller the information that we gathered so that she can see why that decision was made. Obviously, if you still disagree with that at that point, you're within your right to bring that back up to the Highway Safety Committee. However, based on the fact that we passed that ordinance on that recommendation, I mean, I think that that's where it stands. I'm not sure about the sign. You both mentioned having to look at the state ordinances and where we have to post things. So I certainly trust you all to do that appropriately.
So can we put this on the,
But I want to agree with you, Pete. The point is, there is a process in place for setting speed limits and changing speed limits. That process was followed to change it. If it wants to be changed again, we have to go through the same process with public hearings and everything else that
Exactly.
we're required to do. That can happen, but it has to happen in order for it
for us
to change.
not to follow the,
Right.
yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
as the chairman of the Highway Safety, and we just went through this, my only suggestion is if we are going to go through that process again, I don't think Highway Safety needs to, I don't know if, maybe I'm misspeaking here, I just don't think the Highway Safety Committee needs to convene a board again to talk about putting it back to 35 when we just recommended it to be 25. I would just ask that if the residents feel that way, they can come here and speak to the board who just made that decision and then go through that process to
Go ahead,
repeal
Paul.
it.
I would agree with you, Chief. Those decisions are based on a number of metrics, including surrounding speed limits, geometry of the road, surrounding neighborhoods and properties and whatnot. So that data's already been collected. It's there. It hasn't changed. It still exists. I don't think we need to go out and collect any more data. Just go back to the data that was already collected and see whether or not it still supports this change that's being requested. I would agree with you.
The data that influenced us at that time,
Right, exactly. It's the same data.
which is what Kelly's asking for. So why don't we put this on hold for a little bit, and we'll try to get that data, we'll review it, to get some more information, and we'll go from there. Go ahead.
So based on the timing of the request not to install the sign, the dig safe markings have been made. We had a highway safety committee, I think, a week and a half, 2 weeks later. So that was the reason for the, let's just not put the sign in. Maybe something else will come out of this, and it's a short enough turnaround. At this point, what's the board's
Well,
decision? Leave the
our
sign?
board, no, our board's decision was it was a 25 mile an hour speed limit back in the spring. And those people that came in and that requested it, they're expected to see a 25 mile an hour speed limit.
I'd be in favor of putting the sign up, period.
My idea is, my thinking is, find maybe a better, more suitable place for Evelyn and her group to put the sign up, but still, a way we can enforce the 25.
For the entire
Right,
road, all the way to Back Mountain?
right.
You're right, that's what it says.
Adam, how far down was the sign originally going to be placed?
Oh, maybe
50 feet from the
Yes.
entrance of Back Mountain Road.
Was it 50? Okay, yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with that, to be honest with you, 50 feet.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We'll just, guys work on it with them, maybe we can come up with a,
Can you give us guidance that if we do work with the residents, we do determine it might be even closer to the road, that it works for everybody, that it could be 10 feet, 20, is that okay with the board? If, placement-wise?
as long as you think it's
Okay.
enforceable.
Okay.
Which is the whole question, is we want to make sure something's enforceable.
Right.
And I also believe that the discussion is not to change the speed limits, to keep it at 25
For now.
in placement of the sign.
Right. All right, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Adam, you might as well stay up here.
Get my packet, sorry.
This chair's hotter than mine was. I don't know what happened.
You're at tab 6 in your
Yeah.
packet.
All right, thank you. So just one item for me tonight. Hopefully it's a brief one. We, as you know, completed the aforementioned improvements on Catamount Road and the Back Road intersection this year. During the budget process, we had actually budgeted to use some road improvement impact fees for the project. We have 12 sub-accounts in the impact fee, road improvement impact fee account that are expiring in 2023, beginning in January. So rather than get to a point where we're fighting the expiration date of those, I'd like to recommend that we transfer the funds from the impact fee account to the general fund to reimburse the town for the expenses on Goffstown Back Road and Catamount. We've got a total of, as of the 30th of September, just under $75,000 in the total impact fee, road improvement impact fee account, and just over $8,000 of that would be expiring in 2023. We've also got a separate offsite improvement fund for the back road, which was from some development on Durango Drive in 2002. A notice of decision carved out some money for improvements on the back road as part of the corridor study on the back road. This Catamount Road intersection was identified as being a safety concern at that time. So there's just over $7,200 available in that impact fee, offsite improvement fund. I'd like to transfer that as well. Danielle's reminded me, though, that last year when we budgeted, we were trying to come to a round number, and we had estimated using $10,000 in road improvement impact fees for this year. So if you don't mind an audible field change on the request tonight, the recommended motion should read release $10,000 plus accrued interest from the road improvement impact fee accounts. I guess that would just be $10,000, and $72.52 and 89 cents for the offsite improvement account. So you either go with a memo, or you can increase that to the $10,000 that we budgeted for the revenues.
We can just change it here. Jim? Well, I thought you had your hand up.
Who's making a motion?
I'll do that. I move we release the sum of $10,000 plus accrued interest from the road improvement impact fee accounts, and the sum of $7,252.89 plus accrued interest from the off-site improvement account for Catamount Road improvements at Goffstown Back Road to offset 2022 road plan expenses and reimburse the town general fund.
Second.
Go ahead, Mark.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like we're at 7H.
Yes, so if Danielle could come up and we can talk about tax rate.
We go to this one here.
Yes, she handed out a tax rate breakdown.
Yeah, got it.
Good evening.
Good evening, Danielle.
So before you this evening is a draft of our tax rate. We had a few changes when we reviewed the revised revenues with DRA. So the changes, just to give you a brief summary, there was an increase to the meals and rooms tax. That equated to about $400,000. There was a small increase to the highway block grant. That was about $2,000, a little under. And DRA also added $96,324 for the state's portion of the Group 2 NHRS reimbursement. So altogether, we had an increased revenue of $433,278
For what again? For what?
The breakdown?
No, for,
Oh, the total, 433, 278. So that was a much more significant increase than we were anticipating from their adjustments. So that does impact the tax rate that we had brought before you as a draft. So the handout that I provided this evening, that's a copy of the preliminary tax rate as drafted in the state system. And as you can see, that's less than we had originally calculated. We're now looking at a town portion of $9.21 for an overall tax rate of $26.31 if the board were to use the $750,000 in unassigned fund balance that was discussed at the last meeting.
what's the rate now? Yeah,
The total,
total
or
rate.
for 21, or
For
Yeah.
21
for
was-
21 is $24.82.
And the town portion, sorry.
Was $8.30.
And this $9.21 is including the 750,000?
Correct. And I have the state portal up so I can adjust if anybody wants to see any adjusted figures.
So one of the options for us would be to deduct this 433,000 from the 750,000 if we wanted to stay with what we had voted on last time.
It would be a little bit more of an adjustment because you have to remember that the state portal has to take into account the overlay and then redistribute everything across all of the properties without splitting the penny. So if you wanted to keep it at the same rate that was discussed, which was $26.57. That's what I have noted here. Then you could potentially reduce the fund balance use down to $295,000 and have the exact same rate that was discussed at the last meeting.
But if we use the 7 right, now, what we decided to, and this 433, we get the 2631.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I saw...
Well, there's two ways to look at this. One, if you don't use the fund balance and you use these numbers, they come up with the same number, more or less. All right, then next year, you won't rely on fund balance to offset the tax rate as much. Or you may be able to, and it will have more of an impact.
So this last page, Danielle, the current amount retained, the 12.95% retained, is that with the deduction?
That's with the 750
Okay.
that we were planning. If you moved down to say the 295,000, you'd be looking at about a 13.7% retention.
Danielle, just run the front, the 2631. You said, what were the numbers for that one?
It's right there.
That's the first page you have before
Yeah,
you?
Yeah,
Yeah, those are the figures. So you're saying, which figures are you looking for, Mark?
well, the one,
The retention amount?
yes.
It's on the very
It's
last
on the very
page.
last page,
Okay,
Oh, sorry.
12.95.
okay, all right,
Yeah.
$7,224,270.
all right.
Did you want me to give you, if you want to make a margin next to it, I could break down the portions for you? Of each, each of the four pieces or the total?
If we use if we go with the 2631, that's still an increased overall tax rate to the town of $1.50.
Yeah, $1.49.
$1.49.
Yeah, $1.49.
Yep, so it's about 6% on the tax rate.
I think that's the way we ought to go.
So that's you
Me
keeping the
personally, yeah,
7.
that's just me, yeah.
Understand. Again, on the last page, the amount retained 72, that includes the 750?
That includes the use of the 750,000.
So if we took it,
So if you
750,
reduce
that's
that-
what we would have, or we'd have to reduce that further by 750.
No,
No,
no, that includes
no.
us already using it
Okay,
if,
all right, thank
yep.
you.
So, yeah, so when Danielle set this preliminary tax rate, she followed your vote at the last
Right.
meeting.
Okay, great.
750.
But again, she's just bringing up that we did have a significant increase in the revenues that we were
Yeah,
not aware of until today.
And just as a side note, because that 100,000 or so came over from the NHRS disbursement that we were anticipating next year, we have to reduce next year's revenues. So if we use the fund balance now and we use the money, the revenues, we're reducing it from next year's budget. So in your select board level, you're gonna see a change to those revenue projections.
Well, I can live with $1.49.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yep.
I think it's reasonable
Yep.
with the way everything's going, pricing and everything.
Danielle, what do you think the estimated reduction will be for next year? Do you have any idea?
Reduction in,
The amount that will, our revenues.
so the last bit that came over today was the state's contribution to Group 2 Fire and Police. They're paying 7.5% of their retirement. We anticipated that we would be receiving that next year. We actually received that now. That's $96,000.
Yeah.
So what we would do is reduce $96,000 off the revenue, which is,
It would be 100,000, because
yeah,
that's what we
I
had as
think
a
we had
placeholder.
100,000
Yeah.
in the revenue projection. So it's not, you can definitely recover
Yeah.
from that, but it.
And
just
we
think
also
that
always seems, around the last few years, this time we see a little bump in revenues for some reason.
Well, this time, the bump was really due to that one-time state distribution of meals and rooms. So that 400,000, I would not anticipate seeing next year. So whether or not it bumps, I mean, just to keep in mind, prior to that one-time adjustment that the state had voted on, that DRA gave us information on today, our revenues were only changing by $76,000 when we went through from budgeted a year prior to actual drafting of the tax rate, which 75,000 is not very much movement at all. So we've gotten a lot closer on our revenue projections each budget year, but that also doesn't give us much flexibility when it comes to tax rate setting.
That's my only thought with it, is saving a little bit so that we can cushion the fact that we will most likely have a bigger increase next year, the next tax rate setting.
And then you're just gonna raise the tax rate this year even more.
So we spread it out a little more or do it all at once. That's my only thought. Either way, we're trying to provide some sort of relief, so.
Right. Jim, you got any input?
I don't think so. Well, the only thing I thought of, and this is, I don't want to open a can of worms, but there's nothing else really we can do to lower the tax rate other than use more money from the, right?
Right.
Right now, yeah.
That's all we can do, so. All right, I guess that's it.
Yeah. Collis, you got anything?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with $1.49. I think that's reasonable.
Cal? Mark?
Yes, sir.
Need a motion? What do you need?
If the board's okay with this preliminary tax rate, then I will go ahead and submit that to DRA for their approval and notify the assessor that he can go ahead and prepare the warrant. He'd like to get that before you for signature tomorrow if
night.
possible.
Okay. Need a motion on that, Derek, or?
Yeah, so it'd be appreciated if you could vote to approve the preliminary tax rate presented to you this evening and lock in with DRA.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Collis, second by Mark, and that's according to the figures that are given us
Correct.
tonight. That'll reach approximately $1.40.
$1.49.
Right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And do we have any new business? Anybody got any new business? And old business, review of the proposed changes to the fund balance policy,
Yes.
which we were given tonight.
Yeah, there were a couple of, that you see, this is, I guess, a clean version of what was sent out to you with the changes. Incorporates those changes that are in your packet, as well as there were just 4 different changes that I missed, that Danielle pointed those out to me today. Don't think that they're very significant. The biggest one is on page 2 of 3, under the appropriate level of unassigned fund balance. That GFO recommendation is in regards to unrestricted budgetary fund balance, which is a combination of unassigned fund balance as well as the committed and assigned fund balance. So GFOA recommends 2 months worth of that, but most of our assigned fund balance is in those encumbered POs that we carry forward from a previous year, because we have contract for those, so we don't feel that it's appropriate to use those in your calculation.
Question I had was, the minimum. Now, we're setting the policy that the minimum is 12%, right? What happens if there's an emergency and we have to go below that 12%?
So that's discussed on page 3, under the state allowed fund balance uses. And it talks about the board, bullet number 3, the select board may appropriate unassigned fund balance for emergency purposes as deemed necessary, even if such use decreases it below the designated percentage.
So we still have the authority to move it.
Huh?
So we still have the authority to move it.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that's in there, so.
And right now, from the discussion that we just had on the tax rate, you're at 12.95%.
So we're there.
Doing great.
So I need a motion to accept the amended or the updated fund balance policy?
I'll make a,
Go ahead, Kelly.
I'll make the motion to approve the fund balance policy as presented.
second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
With this one, we had discussed providing the updated policy to the budget committee because it did have such a great explanation of fund balance.
I can bring
usage history.
copies tomorrow evening.
Can we
if you'd
do
like.
that prior to even it being signed? Or we could sign it tonight?
We had a copy for you
Oh,
to sign
okay.
this evening.
Yeah, we've got clean copies for
Great,
the
I
time.
think that would be good.
Anything on the action matrix?
I neglected to insert an action matrix into your
Okay.
packet.
All right. We'll move on then. Is there anybody else here for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close that and make somebody give a motion.
Make a motion, we go into non-public session, RSA 91A:3, 2, Roman numeral 2A, for compensation and hiring. That's it?
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. A roll call, Jim?
Yes.
Kels?
Yes.
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 That will conclude tonight's public portion of the October 24th, 2022 Select Board meeting.